Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Tutelage A Guide to Learner. Here, this is Sriparna. Hope all of you are doing good. In my last session, we had discussed some factors which basically affects the learning procedure, Gagne's theory of learning, and some teaching models, and one of the most important topic, that is the differences between the teacher-centric method and the learner-centric method. But now we are going to discuss some new concepts, new topic under the same chapter. So that's why this chapter name is Teaching Aptitude part 6. So let's start the session and move on the next. Here there are some topics which we will explain today. So the first topic is lecture method, demonstration method and heuristic method. The second topic was team teaching method, project method, flipped classroom method, open learning method, and one of the most important teaching method of the session, that is the brainstorming session and the panel discussion. So let's begin the session and move on the main slide. So let's ready to begin. We have already told today we are talking about different types of teaching methods. So we all know that there are two types of teaching method. The first one is a student-centric teaching method and second one is a teacher-centric teaching method. So at first we have to know what do you mean by a teaching method. So before going to the discussion on different types of teaching method, at first we have to discuss what do you mean by a teaching method. So a teaching method basically comprises the different types of principles, methods which are used by the teachers to enable what purpose? Student learning. So teaching method basically enables the student learning procedure, and some strategies are determined partly on the subject matters to be taught and partly by the nature of the learner, because some teaching methods are student centric. So student centric means which is basically depends on the nature of the students, and on the other hand the teacher centric teaching method, so which is fully directed by the teacher. So I think it's clear from their name. So now move on the next topic, and the main topic basically we are going to discuss our first teaching method, that is the lecture method. So at first we have to know what do you mean by a lecture method. So lecture method is basically an oral presentation of the lesson by the teacher, and which is an ancient instruction method, and that's why it is one of the most ideal and most commonly used method for addressing the large classroom. Generally there is only one way communication between teacher and students with little or no participation from learners. So I think what is lecture method is clear to everyone. So now move on the merits of the lecture method. So you can see some merits of the lecture method. The first one is suitable for larger groups. We have already told lectures are presented for addressing larger groups usually. So that's why it is one of the most important merit of lecture method. Now going to the second point, this is a time saving process. Basically it is economic, as more information can be provided to students in a short span of time. So that's why it is called the time lecture method is a time saving process of the teacher. So now move on the third point, that is teacher adjusts information and depending upon the time and need of the class. So there is a flexibility as the teacher can adjust their flow of information depending on the time and needs of the class of class students basically. So now move on some demerits. So here we can see some demerits of the lecture method. The first point is no participation from the student side. So we have already told that thing, there is a one-way communication. So there is no communication or little communication between teacher and student. So that's why we are saying no participation from the student side, and which is one of the most important demerit of the lecture method. And now going to the second point, teacher controls flow of information, obviously, because teacher can adjust only the flow of information depending upon the time and need of the class students. So that's why teacher fully controls their flow of information. So now move on the third point of the demerit. So that is individual students' need are not addressed. So we have already told there is a one-way communication, and lecture method basically a oral presentation of the lesson by teacher. So that's why there is no space for individual students' need. Okay, and it has the tendency of becoming boring if the teacher has not planned properly. So which are the important demerits of the lecture method. So now move on the next teaching method, that is the demonstration method. So at first we have to know what do you mean by a demonstration method. And demonstration method basically opposite to the lecture method. We can see lecture method is a teacher centric method, and demonstration method is fully a student centric method. So now going to the explanation of the demonstration method. So what is the demonstration method? So teachers demonstrate the whole procedure, whole content to students for their better understanding. And demonstration means explaining or showing students practically the working of any procedure or object. So it is one of the most commonly used in teaching mathematics and science subjects. So now move on some merits of the demonstration method, and the first point is it helps in boosting the student interest. So teachers are explaining or showing students practically the working of any procedure or object, so it helps in boosting the student interest. And now move on the second point, more active students. So students remain more active while watching the demonstration process. And now going to the third merit, this is topics can be explained in an effective way. So different types of ideas, different types of procedures, object, concepts can be explained in an effective way using demonstration method by the teacher. So now move on some demerits of the demonstration method, and the first point is it is used costly materials, and that's why it is more costlier than the lecture method. Okay, so it can be costly due to the use of expensive materials. Okay, so now move on the second point, this is time consuming process. When students are not actively involved in the demonstration method, as they only watch the teacher using different types of object and they don't perform them by themselves. So that's why the whole process is a time consuming process, because it doesn't help in boosting the students interest, and which enhances which doesn't enhances the understanding of the topic. So that's why it is called demonstration method is a time consuming process when students are not actively involved in this method. So now going to the third point of the demerits of the demonstration method, that is teacher needs to be an expert in the field for giving demonstration. Obviously expert teacher is needed. Without expert teacher the whole process of the demonstration method is fully pissed off. So now going to the next teaching method, but lecture method and demonstration method is clear to everyone, and these two are basically the basic example of the two different types of teaching method. The first one is the teacher centric teaching method. First one is the example of the teacher centric teaching method, and the second one, that is a demonstration method, is an example of the student centric teaching method, basically which is depends on the nature of the students. Okay. uh, so now move on the next topic, next teaching method, obviously. So here we can see the heuristic method, and heuristic method basically was proposed by the Armstrong. Okay, so the word heuristic is derived from the Greek word heuristein, that means find. So the word heuristic means find out something. Okay, so the main aim of the method is to make students learn curiously by discovery instead of receiving information as such from teachers. Okay, like lecture method. So students should try to explore, explain, describe and predict the topic given to them by the teacher. So principles of activity, logical thinking, known to unknown, purposeful experience, self-thinking, self-study, etc., which are used in the heuristic method. Clear? So in this method the teacher gives a topic or problem to the students, and they have to find the solution using their library, using their laboratory and online resources, workshops, seminars, etc. So basically it helps to make students to learn curiously, and in this method we are used the self strategies, self study, self thinking, etc. So self study, self thinking, self prediction, which are the most important criteria in this method basically. So now move on the merits of the heuristic method. The first method, heuristic method, is obviously a student centered approach. And now going to the second point, it focuses on the developing scientific attitude in students. Basically it helps to make students learn curiously by discovery, and that's why it helps in boosting the scientific attitude in students. And now going to the third point, it develops confidence because it helps in all round development of the students, and it also develops confidence in students through self study, self thinking, self predicting, etc. So now going to the fourth point, we have already told that heuristic method basically helps in the all round development, which includes mental development, physical development, social development, political development, etc. Okay, so now move on the some demerits of the heuristic method. So first point, this is it is not meant for students of the primary level. Obviously basically the main aim of this method to make students learn curiously by discovery, so that's why it is not possible for the students of the primary level. And now going to the second point, below average students will not be comfortable with this method because self thinking, self knowledge, self study of the below average students is low compared to the average students or the higher average students. Okay, so that's why the below average students will not be comfortable with this method. And it is important here for students to have access to library, laboratory and internet, but some institutes might not be able to provide this. So in such circumstances it will be difficult to use this method. Okay, and now move on the second method, that is a project method. Okay, so I think this is clear from its name. Project method is basically a activity based learning. Okay, so it was developed by the Kilpatrick. So heuristic method was developed by the Armstrong, and the project method was developed by the Kilpatrick. Okay, so the project method involves the activity based learning, and project can be static or the working model, or it can be in the form of the report also. So in the project report, students conduct research, carry out their survey and then present the findings of the research in the form of report. So it can be used in sciences and the social science subject, and projects can be allocated to students individually or in the groups also. So now move on the some merits of the project method. And the first merit and one of the most important merit of the project method, that is it is a student centered approach. And now going to the second point, and it is easy to evaluate also. So now move on the some demerit of the project method. So first one is, it is the time consuming process. So time consuming project method is basically a time consuming process, and which is one of the most important demerit of the project method. And now move on the second point. The ready-made projects are also available in the market easily. So if students purchase these instead of preparing on their own, so then the purpose of the projects is not fulfilled. Okay, so I think this is clear. So now move on the next teaching method, that is the flipped classroom method and the open learning method. So flipped classroom method is opposite of the normal classroom. So what do you mean by a flipped classroom? So modern concept that has become popular since the 2007, where teachers record their lectures and share them with students, and it is named the flipped classroom. Okay, so what is flipped classroom? Where teachers record their lectures and share them with the students, it is called the flipped classroom. Okay, so it is just opposite of a normal classroom. And teacher shares a video link, and teacher shares a video link obviously with students when it is uploaded. Okay, so in a normal classroom setup, the teacher instructs the students and gives them some assignments as a homework. So but in a flipped classroom, the teacher shares the video link with students, and they watch these at their own pace at home. So the students then work on assignments in the classroom also. And now going to the some merits of the flipped classroom. The first point, students can study at their own pace. This is also very important merit of the flipped classroom, because in a flipped classroom structure, teachers record their lecture and share them with students, and after it is uploaded online, so teacher shares their video link with students also, because students can study at their own pace from those videos. Okay, so now move on the second point. There can be a better discussion on assignments in the classroom. And now move on the some demerits of the flipped classroom. So first one is, all should be aware of the latest technologies and which can be used in the recording and the sharing lectures. So teachers as well as students should be aware of the latest technologies which can be used for recording and the sharing lectures. So without the knowledge of the technology, the flipped classroom method is fully pissed off. So that's why it is very, very important, the knowledge of the technology of the for both teacher and the students. Okay. So now going to the second point, some problem arises when there is a bad network connection, obviously. So good network connection is necessary in the flipped classroom method. So when the network connection is when students don't have the good internet connection, good network connection, so problem arises. Okay. So now move on the next teaching method, that is the open learning method. So open learning method, at first we have to know what do you mean by a open learning method. So open learning method is a form of a learning in which there are no barriers of age, place, time, etc. Students can learn wherever and whenever they wish to. Okay. So even learning is the basically a responsibility of the students. So even students have choice about when they will attend exam. Housewives, employed persons, students from the remote areas, etc. can complete the course through open learning system without any restriction of the attending lectures. There is a basic differences between the open learning education and the distance learning. So distance learning, also known as the correspondence course, and it takes place when the teacher and students are geographically distant. Students can learn from the postal courses, audio or video call, television programs, books, newspaper, online materials, etc. UGC, CBSE and other educational institutes provide their video lectures to students through YouTube. So students can enroll for such forms of learning with IGNU, that is Indira Gandhi National Open University, so State Open University and other universities offering open courses. So this is a basic differences between the distance course and open learning course. But before enrolling, the students should verify the validity and the authenticity of the course and institute from the UGC's website. So also there are online platforms like edX, others which offer different types of courses by the foreign universities as well as the reputed Indian institutes, free of fully free of cost. So now move on some merits of the open learning method. So open learning method, there is no restriction on learning, there is a greater flexibility, and it is one of the most important example of the student centered approach of learning, because students can study at their own pace, own place and own time. So there is no restriction on learning, and it is helpful for those students who cannot attend the regular classes, and it helps it helps to save time and money. Okay. So now move on the some demerit of the open learning method. There is a high tendency of getting distracted. So before we have already told before going to the enroll, the students should obviously verify the validity and the authenticity of the institute and the course from the UGC's website, because there is a high tendency of getting distracted, as students will not meet the teachers and other classmates every day. Everyday interactions keep one aware the deadline. So also students learn from the peer groups also. Okay. So now move on the second point, students have to keep themselves motivated and dedicated to successfully complete the course. So students have to keep themselves motivated and dedicated to complete the course successfully. Now going to the third point, open learning scams have been reported. So we have already told students should verify the validity and authenticity of the institute and the course, because open learning scams have been reported. Okay. So now move on the next teaching method, that is team teaching method. Okay. So I think this is clear from its name. This is a way of teaching as a team between two or more teachers and students. Okay. So in the team teaching method, not only one teacher plans the class activity, aids, etc. for the students, rather two or more teachers plan the activities, teaching aids, etc. for the same set of students. Clear? So now going to the merit of the team teaching method. So it helps to encourage friendship among teachers. Basically, there is two or more teachers. Okay, so that's why it helps to encourages friendship among teachers. Now going to the second point, collaboration will improve the learning. Different teachers have different teaching style, different ideas, so their collaboration between the different teachers will improve the learning process or learning procedure. But team teaching method is fully teacher centered method. Okay, and now going to the fourth point, it is helpful for the interdisciplinary approach. So now going to some demerits of the team teaching method, and first one is it cannot be used for all subject. Obviously, uh, both two or more teachers plan the activities and aids, etc. for the set of students in the team teaching method, and it cannot be used in differ in all subjects. Okay, and next one is there is a need consensus among teachers regarding the teaching methods, teaching aids, teaching strategies, etc. to be used. And now move on the last two teaching method of the session, that is brainstorming session and the panel discussion session. Okay, so now going to the brainstorming teaching method. So at first we have to know what do you mean by a brainstorming method. Okay, so what is the brainstorming method? Brainstorming session are marked by the spontaneity. Okay, so in such sessions participants have to share their opinion or idea about the topic. Ideas flow without any evaluation, and this is one of the most important demerit of the brainstorming, obviously. So ideas are noted on a board or on a paper, so then at the end of the session the best ideas are chosen and similar ideas are clubbed together. So the teacher acts as facilitator in such sessions. I think the brainstorming process is clear to everyone. So what do you mean by a brainstorming session? In the brainstorming session, some ideas are noted on a board or on a paper, and at the end of the session the best ideas are chosen and similar ideas are clubbed together. I think this is clear, and in this session, in this brainstorming session, teacher act as a facilitator only. Okay, so now move on some merits of the brainstorming teaching method. So firstly, it is group centered method, obviously, and now going to the second point, it helps to generate many ideas within a short span of time. Okay, and there is a greater scope of participation, obviously, and it helps to boost in creativity, confidence, and the innovations, and it can be used for small groups as well as the large groups also. And such sessions can generate many ideas within a short span of time without any evaluation, and without any evaluation is most important demerit of the brainstorming. So first one is students might hesitate in participating sometimes, okay, and such sessions may not always be effective, and this may not always be peaceful session. It focuses on the quantity rather quality. If unplanned the whole brainstorming session, so it is basically a time consuming process. Okay, and now move on the panel discussion method. And what is the panel discussion? Basically, in the panel discussion, discussions about a topic are held among the panel members. So panel members can be chosen Panel members can be chosen from the within class, or a subject experts can be invited for all panel discussion. So it is basically a discussion about a topic among panel member. I think this is clear. What do you mean by a panel members? And now going to the merits of the panel discussion. The first one is if planned, executed well, so this can engage more listeners than a lecture or a single speaker activity. So planned and well executed discussions engage more listeners. And now move on the second point. Students will get to learn from experts in the field. Okay, and how to communicate, and by observing the such type of session, such type of discussion, students will learn how to communicate their ideas and their viewpoints. Okay, so now going to the demerits of the panel discussion. And the first one is discussion will not be of any use if the members don't have adequate knowledge regarding the topic. Without adequate knowledge, the discussion will not be of any use, okay, regarding the topic, obviously. And now going to the second point, the rest of the class basically might get bored during such an activity. So there is a boring classroom. So in the panel discussion, boring classroom is one of the most important demerit of the panel discussion. Basically, panel discussion implies a discussion about a topic which is held among the panel members only in the class. So rest of the class might get bored during such an activity. So I think different types of teaching methods are clear to everyone. So we are done for the today's session. I hope this session will be very useful to you. If you like my session, then one like, one comment, one share for me, and please do subscribe my channel for getting more useful session. I will come again with a new session. Till then, stay tuned. Thank you to all of you from my core heart. Happy learning.